Right now, the richest, most powerful companies on earth are lining up to sell you their stock. Bigger names, bigger valuations, bigger hype than the market has ever seen. To some folks, this is the dream 2.0. Finally, regular people get to own a piece of the businesses that'll define the next century. But to others, this is a setup. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree. Because on Wall Street, nobody hands you a gift out of the goodness of their heart. Every trade needs two sides, a buyer and a seller. So if you're buying, someone else has to be selling. Which means, before you hand over your hard-earned cash, ask yourself one question. Why are they selling? In an IPO, the people on the other side of your trade aren't strangers. They're the founders, the early employees, the venture capitalists who bankrolled these companies back when they were nothing. Nobody understands these businesses better than they do. And they've looked at the hottest companies around, the ones everybody's dying to own, and made their decision. They'd rather have your cash than their own shares. Strip away the hype reels and the bell-ringing ceremonies, and that's all an IPO really is. A trade where one side knows everything, and the other side, you, knows almost nothing. So, here's the question every insider riding this wave is hoping you never ask. If these are really the greatest companies on the planet, and the future's this bright, why are the smartest people in the room in such a rush to cash out? There's an answer. It's a pattern that's shown up before every major market crash in history, and almost nobody sees it coming. I call it the dine and dash. In poker, a tell gives away what someone really believes. Markets have tells too, and they don't come from cable news. The average investor sells when they're scared, when the headlines turn ugly. The pros do the opposite. Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's own mentor, put it best. The intelligent investor sells to optimists and buys from pessimists. Insiders sell when the story's loudest and the line to buy in stretches out the door, because that's when the price is highest. Go back to June 2007. Markets are roaring. Blackstone's founders take the company public and personally pocket $2.6 billion in cash. A year later, global financial crisis. Blackstone's stock craters 90%. Go back further, the dot-com bubble. In 1999, tech made up 51% of every IPO that year. A year later, the Nasdaq lost 75% of its value, $5 trillion gone. Didn't fully recover for 15 years. One study found only 29% of companies that IPO'd from 96 to 2000 were even still standing as independent public companies a decade later. Fast forward to 2021. Same con, new costume. SPACs. Blank check shell companies that let private businesses skip the scrutiny of a normal IPO. In 2021 alone, 613 SPACs raised over $160 billion. Companies that de-SPACs that year lost 67% of their value on average. By 2022, SPAC listings collapsed from 613 down to just 86. That's the dine and dash. Insiders sell when it's booming. They vanish when it's not.
So, what about AI? Why are the biggest rivals in the industry companies that agree on nothing, all racing to sell you stock at the exact same time? Two numbers tell the story. Big Tech is on track to spend $725 billion this year alone building AI infrastructure, up 77% from last year. Picture spending $1 million every single day since the birth of Christ, through the fall of Rome, the Middle Ages, both world wars. You still wouldn't touch what Big Tech spends on AI in 2026 alone. That's $2 billion a day. $23,000 every second. And what's all that spending actually earning back? One research firm estimated the entire global AI economy generated $110 billion in revenue over the past year. Not profit, revenue. That's about 15% of what Big Tech alone is spending. By any measure, that's a terrible investment. And it's not just big tech eating the loss. One survey of over 3,000 business leaders found 74% want AI to grow revenue. Only 20% have actually seen it happen. Researchers studying hundreds of real corporate AI rollouts found 95% produced zero measurable return. $725 billion going in. Almost nothing coming back out. The market's pricing these companies like that gap doesn't exist. Take OpenAI, the company at the center of it all. $13 billion in revenue last year. Sounds solid until you learn they lost $38.5 billion in the same year. They expect to burn over $100 billion by 2029. Their last valuation? $852 billion, more than 65 times revenue. This brings us to maybe the greatest quote in finance history. Summer of 2007. Citigroup CEO Chuck Prince, asked about the bank's exposure to risky lending right before everything collapsed, said, "As long as the music is playing, you've got to get up and dance. We are still dancing." He knew the crash was coming. He kept dancing anyway because the only thing that mattered was making sure someone else was still on the dance floor when the music stopped. That's exactly what you're watching now. Except this time, the hot potato is AI stock priced for perfection, and the players, founders, insiders, venture capitalists, are racing to hand it off to the biggest, most excited crowd of buyers they can find. Regular retail investors. So, let's go back to the question we started with. If these really are the greatest companies of our time and the future's this bright, why is everyone who actually knows the numbers in such a hurry to sell? Because it's the smart move. They're not dumb. They see the same gap you do. But they're stuck in an arms race that needs deep pockets, and a bet with a slim shot of paying off can only stay alive so long. So, whoever sells first sells into the hungriest crowd. It doesn't even matter if these are good companies. The price already assumes perfection. There's almost no room left for good news and endless room for disappointment. Eventually, the fundamentals always catch up. I can't tell you when. Nobody can. And anyone who looks you dead in the camera and gives you a date is lying. You don't need the date. You just need to read the room. That's why this channel exists, to make sure you're never the last person on the dance floor when the music finally stops. If that's worth something to you, hit subscribe. Because you don't need to know the exact second it ends. You just need to know you don't want to be the one still dancing.